I have this situation I need to run by you.
Oh, all right. Lay it on me.
It is basically the classic office mystery, right?
Okay.
You have two people, and they're sitting maybe 10 feet apart doing roughly the exact same job.
Okay.
And they report to the exact same manager. But here is the thing. One of them thinks the boss is a visionary genius, like a mentor, a guide, basically Yoda in business casual.
Right. I know the type.
And then the other one thinks that very same boss is just a distant, unhelpful bureaucrat who literally doesn't care if they live or die.
Yeah, we have all seen that movie. And usually, we just assume one of two things in that scenario.
Yeah.
Well, either the happy employee is the teacher's pet or the unhappy employee is just difficult.
Exactly. It is always framed as a personality clash or someone is just playing favorites. But today, we're going to find out that it is actually way more complicated and honestly, way more interesting than that.
It really is.
Because we are doing a deep dive into what is arguably the most comprehensive look at the boss-employee relationship ever attempted.
Yeah, we are looking at a massive meta-analysis that was published in the Journal of Management. The lead author is James Doolban. And he and his team, they didn't just do a survey of one office.
No, not even close.
They aggregated data from 247 different studies. We are talking about 290 independent samples here.
Just so everyone listening understands the scale of this isn't, we asked 50 people at a tech startup.
Right.
This is tens of thousands of data points aggregated to find the definitive answers to what makes a relationship with a boss actually work.
Exactly. They were looking at a concept called leader-member exchange, or LMX for short.
LMX.
And the sheer size of this meta-analysis allows them to see patterns that smaller studies just completely miss. They really wanted to nail down the antecedents.
Which are the ingredients, right? The things that build a relationship.
Yes, the antecedents and then the consequences, which is what happens when you actually have a good relationship.
Well, before we get into those ingredients, let's talk about LMX itself. Because traditional leadership advice, the stuff you read in Airchart paperbacks, it usually treats the leader like a broadcaster.
Yes, the broadcast model.
It's like,
Why?
I am a democratic leader, or I am an authoritarian leader, and I just broadcast that signal to everyone equally.
That is the traditional view. But the LMX theory says that is basically nonsense.
Complete nonsense.
It argues that leadership isn't a broadcast at all. It is a series of individual telephone calls. A leader develops a completely unique one-on-one relationship with every single person reporting to them.
So it's not a blanket style.
Not at all. The technical term they use is dyadic, meaning a pair. But really, it just means your relationship with your boss is totally unique to you. It might have zero resemblance to the relationship your colleague has with the same person.
So the real question for you, the listener, isn't, is this a good boss? The question is this a good exchange?
That is the absolute core of it. And Doolban's study frames this exchange as a spectrum. On the far low end, you have what they call low LMX, which is essentially an economic exchange.
Economic exchange. I have to say, that sounds pretty cold.
It is cold. It is purely transactional. It is the employment contract and nothing more.
Right.
It's just, I pay you X dollars, you file Y reports. It relies heavily on immediate reciprocation.
Like keeping a tally.
Exactly. If I do something for you, I expect you to do something for me right now. It is rigid. There is no emotional bond, no real loyalty, and definitely no extra effort. You are essentially a cog in a machine.
I mean, that sounds like a lot of jobs, honestly. Just, I do my hours, I get my check, I go home.
And for many people, that is totally fine. But the other end of the spectrum is high LMX. They call this the social exchange.
Okay, this social exchange.
This is where the magic happens. It is based on mutual obligation, deep trust, and respect. It is not about the literal contract anymore.
It goes beyond the job description.
Way beyond. If I am your leader in a high LMX relationship, I might stick my neck out for you. I might give you resources you don't technically qualify for, because I trust that somewhere down the line you will pay it back with loyalty or exceptional work.
So it's really the difference between being a mercenary and being a patriot.
That is a very dramatic way to put it, but yeah. Essentially, yes. And the study emphasizes that this is a two-way street. They use the term reciprocal interdependence.
Reciprocal interdependence.
Yeah.
Meaning we need each other.
Right. You need the boss for resources and career advancement, obviously. But the boss also desperately needs you to get the work done so they look good to their bosses. You are locked in this dance.
Okay, so obviously anyone listening to this wants to be in the social exchange bucket. We all want to be in the in group.
Oh, for sure.
So the million-dollar question, and I am really hoping this massive study has the answer, is how do we get there? Is it entirely up to me? Do I need to be a certain type of person?
This is where the data gets super fascinating. They broke down the antecedents, the ingredients, into 3 buckets. They looked at the follower, they looked at the leader, and they looked at the dynamic between them. Let's start with the follower.
All right, hit me. What does the employee need to bring to the table?
Well, the first one is probably the most obvious, which is competence.
Okay. Yeah.
Leaders have goals. If they perceive you as competent, if they look at you and think, this person can actually help me succeed, they're going to pull you close. They effectively invest in you.
So be good at your job. That is the baseline.
Yeah.
But what about personality? Because I feel like we all know that one person who is, let's say, mediocre at the actual work, but they're just so charming that the boss absolutely loves them.
Personality absolutely plays a major role. The meta-analysis looked at the big 5 personality traits, and they found that extroversion and conscientiousness are incredibly strong predictors of high LMX.
Conscientiousness, sure, I get that. That is showing up on time, being organized, doing what you say you'll do. But extroversion. So if I am an introvert who just prefers to keep my head down and do great work, am I structurally disadvantaged?
Statistically speaking, yes.
Wow.
Because extroverts just initiate more interactions. They knock on the office door. They start the casual conversation in the break room. And since relationships are built on interaction, they naturally get a head start. The study also found a strong link to locus of control.
Locus of control.
Yeah.
That is the psychological concept of whether you think you control your own fate, right? Internal versus external.
Correct. People with an internal locus of control, the people who believe I make my own luck, they tend to have much better relationships with their bosses.
Because they take charge.
Exactly. They don't just sit around waiting to be told what to do. They negotiate their roles. They take initiative on new projects. Leaders love that because it takes the mental burden off of them. It makes their life easier.
Versus the external locus person who sits back and says, well, the boss hasn't emailed me today, so I guess I will just sit here and wait.
Precisely. And then there's also affectivity, which is just an academic word for your general mood and disposition.
Okay, so good mood versus bad mood.
Pretty much. Positive affectivity, bringing energy and enthusiasm, builds bridges. Negative affectivity, which is anxiety, irritability, cynicism, that burns them. If you are the office Eeyore, it is very hard to build a high-quality social exchange.
Okay, so let me summarize. Be competent, be outgoing, take initiative, and be happy.
That's the list.
I mean, that sounds like a ton of pressure on the employee. It kind of makes it sound like if the relationship with the boss is bad, it is entirely my fault.
And that is exactly where this study drops a massive bomb.
Oh.
Because they didn't just list out all these factors. They actually measured how much variance they explained in the final relationship.
Meaning how much weight each factor actually carries.
Right. And it turns out the follower characteristics, everything we just talked about, they are not the main driver.
Wait, really? After all that?
The study definitively found that leader variables explain the most variance in LMX quality.
Stop.
Yeah.
So you were telling me that the whole narrative of, oh, that employee is just difficult, is statistically likely to be false.
It heavily suggests that the responsibility for the quality of the relationship sits squarely with the person in power. The leader's behavior and their characteristics matter way more than the follower's personality traits.
Wow. That is going to be incredibly validating for a lot of people listening right now.
I imagine so.
So what exactly is the leader doing that makes or breaks this connection?
3 big things really stood out in the data. The first one is called contingent reward behavior.
Contingent reward behavior. That sounds a little bit like dog training.
It does sound a bit dry, but it is absolutely crucial. It basically means clarity.
Clarity in what sense?
Like, if you do X, you will get Y. It is the leader setting very clear expectations and then actually delivering on the promises they make. It turns out you cannot build a deep social relationship if you don't have that basic foundational clarity first.
That makes total sense. If I don't know what you want from me, I can't possibly trust you.
Right. Even though that sounds transactional, it is the bedrock. You have to have it.
Okay, what's the second thing?
To really get to the high levels of LMX, you need the second factor, which is transformational leadership.
Ah, the inspiring stuff.
Exactly. articulating a compelling vision, challenging the status quo, and really showing that you care about the follower's personal development. That is a massive predictor of a great relationship.
Okay, and the third, leader variable.
Leader expectations. And this one is fascinating because it's essentially a self-fulfilling prophecy.
How so?
If a leader expects you to be a superstar from day one, they unconsciously treat you better.
Oh, like the Pygmalion effect.
Precisely. They give you the juicy projects, they forgive your early mistakes a lot more easily, they spend more time mentoring you, and because of that preferential treatment, you actually become the superstar they expected.
But it works in reverse too.
It does. If they expect you to fail, they micromanage you, they only give you grunt work, and eventually you disengage. The relationship is often decided in the leader's head before the employee is even logged on for their first day.
That is genuinely terrifying. It means you could be fighting your boss's internal bias from day one.
You very well might be.
But let's talk about the space between the two people. Because sometimes, regardless of traits, you just click with someone. Is that click represented in the data?
It is very clearly in the data. They look at perceived similarity, and it is huge.
Just feeling like you're alike.
Yeah. If I am the boss and I think you and I share the same values, or honestly even just the same hobbies, I am much more likely to pull you into my in-group. And beyond that, simple liking is a massive antecedent.
Just the basic emotional reaction of, I enjoy being around this person.
Exactly. Just liking them.
Okay, this brings us to what I call the dark arts of the office.
The dark arts.
Because if liking is so important, does sucking up work? Be totally honest with me. What does this mountain of data say about influence tactics?
The researchers look specifically at ingratiation. This is doing favors, laughing at the boss's terrible jokes, flattery.
And what's the verdict?
It works. It works really, really well.
I knew it. I hate that so much, but I absolutely knew it.
The data is completely undeniable on this. Ingratiation is strongly positively related to LMX.
Yeah.
Leaders are human beings at the end of the day. They like to be flattered. They like people who make them feel good about themselves.
It's hard to hear, but it makes sense.
The researchers also looked at self-promotion, which is making sure the boss actually knows about your wins and accomplishments.
Yeah.
That also works.
So the lesson for the listener here is essentially toot your own horn and tell the boss they look great today.
Yes, but with a major, major caveat.
Right.
There was another tactic they measured called assertiveness.
Which usually in business advice we think of as a good thing, like lean in, be assertive, advocate for yourself.
Right, but in this specific context, assertiveness means demanding your rights, insisting on what you are contractually owed, pushing back aggressively on requests, and the study found this was negatively related to LMX.
Wow. Wait.
Yeah.
So let me get this straight. If I flatter you, we are good.
Yeah.
If I politely tell you I am amazing at my job, we are good. But if I come in and say, hey, per my employment contract, I deserve this resource, I actually damage our relationship.
Yes, you do. Because think about what you just did. You shifted the dynamic immediately back to an economic exchange.
I see.
It feels highly transactional and almost adversarial to the boss. It signals to them that you aren't in the social exchange mindset of mutual trust and flexibility. You are in a contract enforcement mindset. And leaders recoil from that.
That feels incredibly unfair. It essentially rewards the schmoozers and actively punishes the people who just want fair by-the-book treatment.
It really highlights a hard truth, which is that corporate advancement is fundamentally relational. It is not just meritocratic. The in-group isn't an algorithm that calculates your exact value. It is a social club. And the entry fee is often social frictionlessness.
Man, okay. So let's say we have played the game. We flattered. We are competent. The boss expects us to win. We are officially in the in-group. What do we actually get out of it?
Yeah.
Is it just a warm, fuzzy feeling?
Oh, not at all. The payoff is highly tangible. The consequences section of this meta-analysis is very robust. First off, you get higher performance ratings.
Now, is that because I am actually performing better due to the resources, or just because the boss likes me and gives me a good score?
Honestly, it's likely a bit of both, but you also see a massive spike in OCBs.
OCBs. That stands for Organizational Citizenship Behaviors, right?
Yes, it's the extra mile stuff. Staying late to help a colleague debug an issue, or volunteering for that random committee that nobody else wants to be on. People in high LMX relationships do this constantly because they genuinely feel a sense of personal obligation to the leader. They want to help. And obviously, they quit a lot less often. Turnover just plummets.
What about the psychological side of things? How do they feel about the job?
Huge benefits there, too.
Yeah.
Much higher job satisfaction and way higher commitment to the company. But the most interesting outcome to me personally is justice.
Justice, like fairness.
Yeah. Followers in high LMX relationships perceive the entire organization as fairer. They report higher procedural justice, meaning they think the rules are fair, and higher distributive justice, meaning they think the rewards are fair.
Well, of course they do, because the system is actively working for them.
Exactly. And because of that, they report seeing way less organizational politics.
See, that is hilarious.
Yeah.
Because from the outside looking in, the in-group is the definition of office politics.
That is the great paradox of this whole thing. If you are on the outside looking in, you see blatant favoritism and nasty politics. But if you are on the inside looking out, you see a wonderfully supportive, fair system that justly rewards your hard work. High LMX acts like a shield against the ugliness of office politics.
So you literally live in a completely different reality than the guy sitting 10 feet away from you.
You really do.
Okay, I want to pivot to the most technical, but I think probably the most important part of this paper. We talked about the ingredients, the antecedents, and we talked about the results, the consequences.
Right.
But the researchers did something really clever with the actual data structure in Section 5. They looked at mediation.
Yes. This is the real secret sauce of the paper. They wanted to deeply understand how leadership actually works mechanically. We know that doing good things, like inspiring the team, leads to good outcomes, like hard work. But the researchers asked, what is the actual path between A and B?
And they found that the path is the relationship itself.
Correct. The structural equation modeling they did proved that LMX is the primary mediator.
Okay, can you help us visualize that?
Yeah.
Because for a lot of people, mediator just sounds like a divorce lawyer.
Fair enough. Think of the relationship, the LMX, like a Wi-Fi signal.
Okay.
The leader is a router sending out data. That data is their vision, their instructions, their encouragement. That is the leadership behavior. But the relationship itself is the strength of the Wi-Fi connection.
I really like that analogy.
If the LMX is low, if the Wi-Fi is stuck on one bar, it doesn't matter how great or inspiring the leader's vision is, the data simply isn't downloading.
Employee just doesn't receive it.
Exactly. They don't absorb it, they don't believe it, they don't act on it. But if the LMX is high, if you have full bars, that exact same vision downloads instantly and drives massive performance.
So if I am a manager listening to this, I can't just stand at the front of the room and do leadership at my team.
No. You can't just act transformational and expect results. You absolutely have to build the connection first. The relationship is the lens through which the employee interprets literally everything you do.
Wow.
Think about it. If they trust you, because you have high LMX, a really tough critique on their work feels like valuable coaching.
But if they don't trust you,
If you have low LMX, that exact same critique feels like a personal attack.
that explains so much. It explains why a manager can go to the seminars, read all the right books, say all the theoretically right things, and still completely lose their team. They are broadcasting high-quality content without ever checking to see if they have a connection.
Exactly. And this strongly supports something called relational leadership theory. It shifts the entire focus of management science away from what traits does this leader have over to what is the quality of the specific connection between these two people.
Now, before we wrap this up, I do want to touch on culture. Because does culture change any of this? Or is this just fundamental human nature? I assume the data here is mostly from Western countries, right?
It is heavily Western biased, yes, which they note as a limitation. But they did find an incredibly interesting nuance when they looked at cultural moderators.
What did they find?
They found that the link between trust and LMX is much, much stronger in individualistic cultures, like the US or the UK.
Why is that?
Well, in a collectivist culture, say parts of Asia or Latin America, your loyalty is often to the group, or the role, or the hierarchy itself.
You respect the position of manager.
Right, you respect the chair. But in an individualistic culture, we don't really respect the position by default.
Yeah.
We relentlessly assess the person in the chair.
We say, do I trust you, Steve?
Exactly. And if the answer is no, the entire relationship collapses. In the West, we are far more demanding of that one-on-one personal bond.
So in the West, that personal relationship really is the anchor for everything else.
It is the filter for your entire work experience.
This has been a massive deep dive. If we zoom all the way out, looking at all 247 studies, what is the single biggest thing you think a listener should walk away with?
I think we need to stop looking at bad employees and bad bosses as these static, unchangeable traits. The data clearly says look at the bridge between them.
The dyad.
Right. If you are a leader, you have the power and, frankly, the statistical responsibility to build that bridge through clarity and inspiration. You cannot wait for the employee to build it for you.
And what if you are the employee?
Realize that the soft stuff, the chatting, the connecting, yes, even a little bit of the ingratiation, it isn't just corporate fluff. It is the literal mechanism that allows you to do your job effectively. You cannot opt out of the relationship and expect to succeed in the role just on merit alone.
It is definitely a bit of a tough pill to swallow for those of us who just want our work to speak for itself.
It is, but human beings are social animals, not output machines.
That is very true.
Yeah.
I want to leave everyone listening with a bit of a provocation to chew on. We talked earlier about how high LMX employees get more resources, they get more support, they get way more patience from the boss.
They do, it's proven.
So isn't good management, which essentially just means cultivating these special one-on-one relationships, isn't it inherently unfair? Because by definition, if there is an in-group getting all the good stuff, there has to be an out-group.
That is the fundamental tension of leadership. If I treat everyone specially, is anyone actually special?
Right. If the Wi-Fi is full bars for every single person in a huge department, does the bandwidth just crash?
Maybe. The research actually suggests that most leaders stop at a few pets, so to speak, because it is cognitively exhausting to maintain truly high-quality social exchanges with everyone. But the ideal goal should be to raise the floor for everybody, even if you can't realistically raise the ceiling for everyone.
That is definitely something for you to think about the next time you see your boss grabbing coffee with their obvious favorite. They aren't just being friendly, they're actively building the infrastructure of the team. Whether that dynamic is fair or not is a whole other debate. Thanks for going on this deep dive with us.
Thanks for having me.